Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in again. My name is Zach with Aspec Avenue, and today we're going to be talking about some of the pros and cons of having an Acura TLX Aspec. I personally have the V6 option, and I do love it. I think it's a great motor. It's very responsive. It gets up and goes when I need it to, but it's also fairly fuel efficient if I want it to be. If I had more highway miles, I'd get better gas mileage, but I'm kind of in a different situation because I drive all day, so I get a little bit different experience than some potentially could have. Now, for me, all the benefits of the TLX can also be, found in other vehicles as well, but that's not to say that this vehicle isn't for you. It really just personally depends on what you're looking for: pricing, styling, features interior wise. And with this 2019, I feel that even though it's a little bit out of that loop of technology wise, like some of the newer brand new vehicles have, it's still pretty profound in what it does have. The biggest thing that I would say is this infotainment system. Even though it's something that's generally not the best, I still do find decent enough use for it. I could actually even put my phone here to watch whatever YouTube content creator, Joe Rogan podcast or whatever. So yeah, I can typically kind of put whatever podcast on or YouTube content creator that I'm watching at the moment on, and it actually stays in place. So if I put it right there right now, I can drive. It doesn't really have any issues with moving around unless I from a stop accelerate super fast. It's very, very stable. So I don't always keep my eyes on that, obviously, because I'm driving, but if I do have it on in the background and I'm at a stoplight or I'm at a standstill in whatever traffic, I can have the luxury of glancing over and noticing that, oh hey, look, it's this person that I'm watching, and I kind of get a little bit of a benefit out of that. Compared to the newer TLX, the second generation, they do have a little bit of a different layout. They also have a trackpad, and for me personally, it's a little bit tougher to digest. But this one is, even though it's not as fluid, it is still something that I use on a day-to-day basis, and it definitely is okay for what I use it for. Another area that I kind of want to talk about for these Acura TLXs is the gauge cluster, right here in the gauge cluster. I've heard that in some of the newer generation, having the silver backing, the silver background with the red gauges makes it a little bit more difficult to read. So that's one area that this generation TLX doesn't have the issue of. Now, when it comes to 2024s, 2025s, whatever, they're switching over to the digital cluster, so that kind of removes every issue that it has for people that maybe had a gripe about it. But personally, for me, these ones are very readable. I'm able to see where I'm going, what speed I'm going without any issues. At nighttime, the cluster can be adjusted, obviously, to lighter or brighter. Right here, there's a couple small buttons right here that you can push to brighten, illuminate it more, or decrease the brightness. So there's no issue with that either. So I'm happy that I don't have the issue that some other people had complained about, but small little thing, some small thing. Another area that people had kind of mentioned about was the sound system, and in my personal opinion, I think the sound system in this car is decent enough. It's nothing that's out of this world. I've had a 2022 Jeep Wagoneer Series 2 that we traded in for another Wagoneer, but that first one had an amazing sound system. It was the best sound system I've ever had in a vehicle, but that vehicle also did cost a lot of money. So there's a big difference when it comes to that one compared to this one. Does the sound system work good in this? Yes, it does. Is it as bassy as I would have hoped? No, it's not. But people that are into that stuff as much as they are, a lot of them, would just add in a sub in the trunk area and call it a day. But for me personally, it sounds great. If you raise the volume, there's no crackling, there's no issues in that regard. So I'm very happy with that. But at the same time, I need a little bit more oomph to my sound systems whenever I'm enjoying them. But overall, it's a quality setup that it has. Now, also mentioning about the another feature that the TLX has, it actually has really good AC. And I compare that to a brand new vehicle that I had, a 2020 WRX. When I first got that vehicle, it had 500 miles on it, and drove great. I had no issue with it. But the AC, I noticed that the AC, it would from within like a couple months, I noticed that it was not as cold as it was. And in the TLX, this one specifically, I don't want to say all TLXs, but I know at least in this one, in mine, the AC has worked outstanding. I've had this car since October of 2023, and it is now July of 2024. And in that span of time, I've never had a single issue with the AC. And even reaching for the back, there's vents in the back that allow, obviously, the back seat passengers to have air as well. It does blow out from there, but in the worst case scenario, if they need more air, I can just direct some of the front facing vents to there, and they get sufficient enough air. So the cabin inside is not big enough to where nobody cannot get air, and that's one huge benefit that I definitely think, especially if you're in a hotter state, that it's going to be able to produce a little bit better AC for you, cool, climate control, which is great. Heater wise, I don't think I've used a heater too much in here, but the vented and heated seats are really good as well. So another huge benefit to having one of these vehicles in the A-Spec trim is you get those features, which is a huge benefit in my opinion. Another area that I truly like about this vehicle, and it made me really purchase the vehicle, is the styling of it. The A-Spec trim level, but also just the look of the grille and everything from this 2018 to 2020 model is just, it looks outstanding. Obviously, to package the A-Spec with the subtle features in the grills, in the rear view mirrors, in the rear diffuser, around the fog lights in the front, those are just accents that really help bring this car to a noticeable difference from the other trim levels, but also compared to other vehicles in different brands completely. I definitely feel that going into the 2021 newer models, those have great features as well, similar to these, in a sense of aesthetic appeal. But for this specific model, this specific generation of TLX, I think it gives it enough separation to make it look noticeably different, and I'm very, very pleased with the overall look of the car. Eventually, I do want to buy rims and also put on air suspension for the car, but that's definitely going to be at a future date. But obviously that's also going to help with the overall appeal of the car, which that's kind of what I go for. I don't really go for fast, quick race cars. I just want to kind of drive, nice, reliably, not have any issues, but make my car stance nice, look nice when it's parked or at a stoplight, or, driving, have a little bit lower of a look, all the while being able to lift it up. If I notice a bump's coming up, or I know something's going to be coming up, because I drive all day and I know the roads really well where I drive, I can, with the press of a button, lift up the car like I had on my 2020 WRX and be good to go. So, but overall, the appeal from the factory of this vehicle is super nice. Now, also talking about the motor again, the V6 motor, I feel is very responsive. It gives a great power band from, if I want to start from a dead stop and do a nice hard pull, it's very, very responsive, and it pulls really good. I've had typically lower horsepower cars. I had, like I said in the previous video, I had two different third generation Integras. I had a 94 and a 98. Both were great, but they were, they had next to nothing horsepower. It's 140 horsepower, and even though it was manual and it was fun, realistically, it was just not enough horsepower, and that's okay. That's totally cool. But this one with close to 300 horsepower is very good. Whenever I do have to get up and go, it's there's never been a hiccup. There's never had any issues with any of sound issues. I know there's been like I think it's a crankshaft or crankcase, something like that, issue that has been on recall. Thankfully, I've not come across that, but overall, it's just very great. The transmission also, the 9-speed transmission that this vehicle comes with is very, very good. I do have one slight hesitation sometimes, not all the time, but I think it's when I'm at a certain RPM, or if I'm in a certain driving style, that I have a slight hesitation going from 4th gear to 5th gear. But I wouldn't be surprised if I could correct that with like a flash of the transmission or something. So that's something to investigate further down the road if it becomes more noticeable. But at the moment, the 9-speed transmission definitely is suited for the power that this TLX packs. I know for me personally, driving day-to-day between city roads and highway roads, it's great for being able to change whatever gear I need to. Like right now, if I do a hard pull, I have no issues with it. And that was me letting off the gas slightly before shifting. So the overall, it's a great transmission, and it definitely handles the power that the motor has out the gate. Now, moving along to some of the cons of the vehicle. Even though it is a something that I handle with and I deal with on a day-to-day basis, the infotainment system is definitely different than most of my other vehicles I had. Even in my 2013 Toyota Camry, I had a touchscreen and it was able to kind of move as as I touched it. This one can't really move anything with a touch. You have to use kind of like the dials right here on the second. I don't know if it's not I don't even know. It's the second part of the bottom part of the infotainment system, which does work, but at the same time, it's just not something that is as ideal. But like I said, I found a way to make it suitable, so that kind of helps in that regard. Another issue that some people with larger passengers in the backseat might have is some of the legroom. I personally don't really have that issue because I'm the driver, and I really don't have any bigger body people in my vehicle. And if it is, it's either my wife in the front seat or a brother of mine in the passenger seat, and then I have my kids in the back seat. So for me, it's not really an issue, which is another reason why I did go with a vehicle. But for somebody that's looking to kind of jam pack this car with your buddies or your family or whoever you want to put in there, whether it's even items, trying to do something, the back seat is not the most spacious. It also does not have any charging for devices like your phone or iPad or whatever. So that's another benefit or con to the back seat. Is the legroom is one area that's a little I can make it work because I've always had like two Integras. I've had a 1993 Honda Civic Coupe. So even though as a driver, I've been in vehicles like that. I've made it work, even being at 6'1". I've been okay because I'm fairly lanky. But for some people that are looking to use that, it might not be the best option, but it still can be used. So another area that is another unfortunate con is that there is no manual transmission option for this amazing vehicle. If this would have had a manual transmission, without a doubt, I would have purchased this TLX in manual. The paddle shifters are and can be fun. Like, I get around town and I do have fun with it. I'm not gonna say I don't. It is way better than not having paddle shifters. I was driving, like I said, a 2022 Jeep Wrangler, Wagoneer for a year or so before I traded that in for a newer one. And during that time, it was automatic. There was no paddle shifters. I was kind of not miserable. I won't say miserable because it was a great vehicle for the family. I was out of my element. I did not have the same type of experience that I've always had in my cars, but that's kind of to be expected going from a either four-door or a coupe car and going into a bigger body vehicle. That's to be expected. but I didn't realize how much I missed having those benefits of a car until I moved to a bigger body SUV. So in the TLX, if they were to have a manual transmission, it would be like, I think, a whole, you know, star above my 10-star rating. I give the car at least a 7.5 star rating based off of everything that it has. I'm just an optimistic person. I think, you know, very highly on things, even when some people don't, unfortunately. I think of the best versions of things. So for me, I would probably give the vehicle like about a 7.5 out of 10. If it had a manual transmission, I would probably be inclined to give it an 8.5, just because I know the driving experience would be that much better. Just from personal experience, going from manual vehicles, like I've had 2 motorcycles, I've had about 4 manual cars, actually 5. I had another vehicle that I sold, that it was a S14 that was also manual. And those experiences that I've had in those vehicles, even though it had less horsepower than this beast, they were overall a better experience because of them. So if this one had a manual transmission, this would be a home run for a choice. Now moving along to the one of the other areas that I think is a con is just the power. If the power could be a little bit more, I think it would be worth the price. And I got this vehicle used, and it had 44,000 miles back in 2023. I paid, after tax, title, and everything, I paid $32,500 around there, even flat. So I feel that if it would have had not 100 more horsepower, but if it would have had maybe even up to 350 horsepower, I think that would have been a little bit more bang for the buck. And I can only imagine, you know, from 2019, from the time of purchase, you know, could have been a little bit more power, you know, out the factory. But I do like the vehicle. It does have enough horsepower, but if it would have had a little bit more, I think it could have justified the pricing for it. But overall, you know, it's just a vehicle that if you're looking to kind of get into a reliable, dependable vehicle that's not going to break your bank, at least for a used vehicle, you're going to have you're not going to have to make too many trips to the shop if you're maintaining your car properly. Yes, your obvious oil changes, tire rotations, you got to do your brakes. Sometimes you might need an alignment. You know, components do wear, but relatively in my entire lifetime with every single Acura or Honda that I've had to, in all of my vehicles, from like a maintenance standpoint, the biggest thing that I've ever had to do one time was a fuel pump. And then I did the fuel filter also, and that was on a 93 Civic Coupe. And I've had other stuff as well, that I got the vehicle used at 140,000 miles, and then by 200,000 miles I had to they had to resurface the flywheel. But that's kind of a little bit more different scenario, because it had such higher mileage. When I got my first, you know, Integra, I was 15 or so at the time, and it had 144,000 miles on it, 144,000 miles on it from when I got it. So that's a little bit different scenario. But for the other vehicles that I've had, I never really had to do any major maintenance like that. Sure, brakes, you know, tires, all that fun stuff. But if you maintain and really treat your vehicle right, if you're not, you know, dogging your motor the entire time, if you're just cruising casually down the streets of whatever city you're from, I think it's going to be a great option. But you know, overall, my personal pros and cons are as listed. Hopefully, if you have any experiences that you have, you can list them in the comments section. Let us know what your experience is with your TLX, and hopefully it's a great one. Thank you again for joining in and watching the video. We hope to see you back for the next one, because I'll probably be talking about the differences between the newer generation trim levels from the base all the way up to the Type S model. So stick around for that. Have a great week, weekend, day, night, morning, afternoon, whatever time of day it is. I hope you have a great one.